Alrighty.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Thank you for joining this information session about the American Sign Language interpreting program here at Eastern Iowa Community Colleges. This program is based out of our Scott Community College campus here in Bettendorf. So we're excited to have you joining us today. My name is Kelsey King, and I serve as the admissions coordinator here at the Scott Community College campus. So I'm here to help you get started with us, navigate that enrollment process, and just be a resource here in helping you get started with us. And joining me today is Diane.
Hi, I'm Diane Roebuck. I am a faculty member and the department coordinator for the American Sign Language English Interpreting degree, and I'm excited to help share some of the information about our programming with you this morning.
So before we dive in talking a little bit more about the program, I'll just quickly go over here to some of the admission steps and how you do get started with us, and then we'll turn it over to Diane to talk more about the program. So if you're interested in getting started with us, the first thing you'll want to do is to complete the application for admissions, and that's on our website at eicc.edu/apply. It takes just a few minutes to complete. Then we do want to see a transcript from either like a previous college or high school that you've attended. We do ask that students take an assessment test as well, such as the ACT, or we offer the free Alex Math test available for students too. And then you'd be able to meet with an advisor, get registered for classes, and pick out your schedule. So that's kind of the process to get started with us. We do also have financial aid and scholarships available for students. So if you're having any questions as you're going through those admission steps, just let me know. That's what I'm here for, to help you through each of those. So with that, Diane, I'll turn it over to you to talk more about the program now.
Okay, so we have this program to prepare students to be ready to enter the interpreting field, and at a generalist level, which often indicates that they're going to be starting work in K-12 educational settings, working with young deaf and hard of hearing kids, or going out and working in the community at a variety of community-related interpreting needs, primarily with adult deaf and hard of hearing community members. And so to start off in our degree, you start off in the Deaf Studies Certificate program. And so as the computer is getting close, deciding it's going to get there. It's our first year, and here it's popping up. So it's 2 terms of study, starting in the fall. You take American Sign Language 1, a lab that goes to increase some of your knowledge about some very specific skills, and the first ITP course called Deaf Studies. It's the historical background of the deaf community and their interactions with the hearing community. Term 2, which is spring term of that same year, you take ASL 2, a lab that goes with that. You continue to look at the deaf community, but this time much more from a cultural standpoint and social aspects of deaf culture. And you take an additional ITP course that is totally based on English as your native language of English. You need to learn how to use English the way interpreters use English. And so we do a really close focus on the grammatical rules of English and work to increase your vocabulary and your familiarity with vocabulary that you may not use in everyday language, but you may need to interpret for as you work in different settings. And so that's the first year, and it gives you a really good taste for what ASL classes are like. They're very fun and exciting. I would say that, yeah, I'm usually the one teaching English vocab and grammar. Cannot meet the excitement of an ASL class. Our ASL classes are here on campus face to face so that you get that interaction and learn all of the aspects of communicating in a visual language. So that's a total of 22 credits, and it gets you started. It's the first year to get the foundational skills in there. Then we get into the AAS degree itself. It starts off right where you left off, ASL 3 and its lab. And then we mix in a few more of the gen eds along here. We have a choice between cultural anthropology or introduction to ethics and a human biology class to get you ready for any of those science type courses at K-12 or college that you might be interpreting for, or ready to go into medical situations to interpret for deaf community members when they're at the doctor or somehow other interactions with the health community. And then you take another course that's based on how we use language. It's the comparative discourse analysis. So English vocab and grammar looks at everything from a sentence level in English. When we get into discourse analysis, that is looking about how we communicate and why we communicate, and be able to compare how we communicate in English versus how we communicate in ASL. We don't take that course until you're in ASL 3 because obviously you need a little bit of ASL to be able to understand all of that. The spring semester of that year, you're taking ASL 4, English Comp 1, and then you start your first interpreting class. And we start you off kind of at a introductory level, and you slowly build from there. There's a lab that goes with that. And then Intro to Language is a deep dive into the grammatical rules of ASL. It mirrors English vocab and grammar for English, but now that you're into 4 languages, 4 courses in ASL, we start looking at the grammar rules and use of ASL. There are a couple gen eds that are slated for summer. Depending on you, depending on how you want to do things, you can take these along with other courses in other semesters, but you can also just reserve those for a summer. Math for liberal arts and developmental psychology. Math is everywhere, and I don't want to scare you. It's not like interpreters do math themselves all the time, but we need to be able to sign and speak in English about math and about numbers. So that's why a math course is in our department. And also, there are students who will take our associate's degree level education and continue on to get a bachelor's degree. And that Math for Liberal Arts is one of those courses that pretty much qualifies you to not have to take a math course at another college. It'll be done and out of the way. Same for our human biology class. It is a lab science class. And so often when you continue on to get a bachelor's level degree, you'll be able to check off the box that you did their lab science class already. So you don't need to take that when you continue on. Developmental psychology, again, it's a really nice basic course, but we work with deaf and hard of hearing community members from very young age of 3 all the way up, into later stages of being adults. So understanding how humans develop is a really good foundational course for all of us as working as interpreters. The very last year is more ASL. You will notice there is an ASL class for every semester in this program because we're building up your knowledge of what is your second language. Okay, to be able to interpret well between 2 languages, you need to have good, strong language skills in each language. And so we're building up your language skills in ASL as fast as we possibly can. You'll notice that in that spring semester of that final, fall semester, that final year, term 4, there are 15 credits just in our department for those majoring and interpreting. And it includes another interpreting course. Transliteration is a different form of interpreting. And then practical issues is a course that looks at all the different types of interpreting you can do with these skills, everything from medical interpreting to legal interpreting, religious interpreting, VRS, which is video relay service, where you handle phone calls that deaf people are making during their business day to different corporations, different businesses, or maybe to family and friends that don't have a video phone. And virtual interpreting, where interpreters are put on screens to be at emergency visits at the hospital or things when they can't get a live interpreter there very quickly. So there's all of these realms of interpreting that the skills in this that we teach in this course are the foundation for getting to all those different types of interpreting. I like to say, once you have the skills, you can work for 4 or 5 years in K-12 and go, I'm a little tired of the academic setting. Well, you still have the skills. They transport really easily to all the different other types of interpreting that are out there. Our last term here, another ASL course, and Transliteration 2. We give you a whole class on interpreter certification preparation, talking about all the laws in the primarily Iowa and Illinois, but we do explore other states about what it takes to get licensed, what it takes, and the certification process to get those licenses. And then practicum is an experience that we pair with that Interpreting Skills Lab 3 that gives all of our students hands-on experience going out and interpreting for clients in their various situations with a mentor with them at all times, who's a fully licensed interpreter with lots of experience and willing to just give you that one-to-one mentorship to help you take the skills that you've learned in class and apply them to real life situations with clients and both deaf and hearing. Okay, so the AAS is a total of 63 credits. At this point, I've gone through a lot of information really quickly, but that kind of touches on an overview. So I would really love to have a question if you have one, and so that I can answer something that you might specifically want information on. Okay, I'm not hearing any questions. Kelsey, did I leave anything out?
I don't think so. Thanks for going over that. I did put my contact info, my email in the chat, as well as Diane's email in the chat. So if you do have questions, please, reach out to us. We're happy to help if any questions do come up after the session today.
Yes, please reach out. I know that people come at interpreting from many different levels of understanding about the deaf community, about interpreting. And so if you're looking at the list of courses, and one of the most common questions I get from people who are inquiring about this program is sometimes you have a degree in another field or you've taken classes. If your gen eds from another degree align with the gen eds from our program, our registrar here takes a look at those and they transfer in. And so if you've taken coursework at a college that matches up with our gen ed requirements, know that if they match up at all with our descriptions and our goals for your understanding, those will transfer in and you do not have to retake those. If you've been familiar with ASL, maybe you have a deaf friend or a deaf family member. I get a lot of questions about, hey, can I test out of an ASL class? Realistically, unless you've taken a formal college level ASL class, most of the time there is not a process to test out of our ASL classes because we're teaching a very formal academic version of ASL that is not commonly used in the deaf community just for conversation, because we're building in so you know all of the formal structures of the language, so that when you are an interpreter, then you can be flexible enough to go from the very formal structure of ASL to other versions of sign language and conversational sign language very easily. And that formal structural ASL is what also gives you the ability to pass all the certification tests to become a professional interpreter. You'll notice here at the top of the page, I skimmed over that as I was going in, these are the certification exams that we are preparing students to be able to take. The Educational Interpreter Performance Assessment, all of us call it the EIPA because otherwise it's a mouthful. The RID, National Interpreter Certification, or the NIC, and the Board of Evaluation of Interpreters, or the BEI, are all three nationally used certification tests. And Iowa and Illinois use all of them at different ways. So that's why we have that course and certification preparation at the end of our program, so that you understand, okay, if I want to work in Iowa in this part of interpreting, this is a certification test I need to take first. Or if I want to work in Illinois, oh, I want to take this one first. They all test the same skills. They're all looking for the skills that we are educating you in this program. They just have slightly different usages by different states and slightly different foci. But they're all tests that we teach you to have the skills to take. I would love a question. I love answering questions, especially on Zoom. I feel like I'm talking to myself on Zoom sometimes.
Diane, I know your program does a lot of like community outreach and things here locally. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what your students are doing in the community?
Sure. COVID year made it really tough, but we're looking forward to this fall getting back into some of our community outreach that we do as a student. Our students do. We have a ASL club that anybody who's taking an ASL course can join. And we don't practice signing in ASL club. What we do is we look at ways to interact with the deaf community. So our local deaf community has a deaf club. And so we're often invited to go help out, join in with the potluck, go to the picnic, and be able to practice our ASL skills with the deaf community that we are borrowing our skills from. And so we go with those type of interactions. Also the AEA, which is the Area Education Association near us, they do lots of activities for the deaf and hard of hearing children involved in programming. And so we go volunteer and help at some of those events. We sometimes host events here and invite the deaf community of all ages to come and interact with interpreters. We play bingo. We do trivia about deaf community trivia and things like that. So we're also known to every once in a while orchestrate a bowling night with the deaf community. Bowling tends to be a very culturally popular thing in the deaf community. So if we host a bowling night and yeah, you go and you play because the deaf community wants to bowl, and that's one of their favorite venues for having some fun. So if you don't bowl well, that's okay. You don't have to bowl well to have fun. But that's one of the ways that, you know, if you think about a bowling alley, it's perfectly set up for an ASL conversation because it's loud and noisy when people are bowling. But ASL, you don't have to worry about it. You can talk to anybody across the lane from you using sign language, and you don't care how noisy it is. So we have a lot of fun with things like that. Sometimes I never make it to bowling because I'm talking to too many people. So that's the event. So yeah, we do a lot of that kind of stuff. We do some fundraising on a biennial cycle because every 2 years we invite a deaf speaker to come in and do some special workshops for our ASL students and interpreting students. And we also provide those higher level professional workshops for working interpreters. out in the community, many of them who are graduates of this program. And then it's a big interpreter reunion. They all come back and have fun, and we do some learning together. This coming spring of 2022, we are due to bring somebody else in and do those workshops. One of my favorite part about that weekend, it's a very exhausting weekend because we have so much fun, but we also bring the deaf and hard of hearing kids in from Clinton and Muscatine and Davenport and Moline, and as far as they can get here in buses. And that is so much fun. The kids get to see each other. They get to interact with a deaf adult who is wanting to interact with them. So yeah, one of my favorite memories of that is it had been 2 years since our first deaf adult came, and we had our second one in, and one of the kids came screaming off the bus and was saying hi to me and saying, "Oh yeah, this is where we saw Peter Cook last time." And that just warms my heart. It's a chance for kids that don't get to see each other because they go to separate school districts to get together and have some fun with peers who sign. So yeah, that's our program. We do lots of different fun things around here and fit in some classes along the way.
All right, well, if there aren't any other questions, again, I put our information in the chat, so feel free to reach out to myself or Diane. We're happy to help you get started and answer any questions about the program. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, please reach out if you need any more information. Thanks.